Okay, hello everybody. I'm Grinder. I'm the raid leader and guild master of the Guild Mist and a mage player. This is going to be my Raszageth guide. I'm going to be doing this from a mage point of view, but hopefully it'll be useful for non-mages as well. In the description, I will also be linking the spreadsheet that included our prep and assignments for this boss, so feel free to check it out and copy it and adapt it for your own guild. In addition, I have this tab that shows the weak auras I was using on progress. A couple of people watched me and asked for them, so I said I would finally share them when we killed the boss, and here you go. In addition, I also have this personal note that I use to remind me of defensives and cooldowns on Raszageth. So hopefully you enjoy. It's my first time doing something like this, so any feedback is appreciated. There are two main differences in Phase 1. The first is that the volatile sparks have 3 stacks instead of 2. So this means that to deal with that, you'll need tighter stack positions, you'll need to spec more AoE CC like Ring of Frost and Blast Wave. Anyone who can spec a Kick or Purge should also spec it. The second change is that the static charges no longer leave behind a zone that prevents you from getting pushed back, which means you need to play the pushback on your own using blinks, gateways, immunities, movement speeds, and the length of the platform. In addition, in this phase, you're going to have a lot of wipes in this phase to random deaths, even after you finish progressing it and you're progressing other phases. It's very important for the sake of your long-term progression that you do everything you can in this phase to avoid random deaths. Phase 1. You can do the extended opener here if you want, I don't bother. It makes your damage less consistent because the first set of bombs come out so early and damage isn't super relevant in this phase anyway. You'll also notice I'm quite inconsistent with some of the rotation optimizations that Arcane has had recently because they were discovered while I was already on the boss. So first off, I make sure to have Prismatic Barrier for every set of bombs past the first one, and I save Greater Invis for when I'm targeted and don't get an external. Phase 1 has a lot of random deaths, so it's good to shave them off wherever you can. So on Mythic, the spark mechanic, every spark has 3 stacks. So you play it simple, you stack as close as possible on the side you're assigned. I pre-place Ring of Frost, and then I Blast Wave when they spawn. I think after the nerfs, you don't need to stack that much in this mechanic. I think you'll have more random deaths to people cleaving than you will to sparks exploding. So I Ring of Frost, Blast Wave, Kick, and then I spam Spell Steal until they're all gone. So before you go into this boss, it's really important to know how you're going to play the wins ahead of time. How I did it was Alter Time the first, Gateway the second, Alter Time third and fourth, and Gateway the fifth. You can also use Ice Block to completely remove the push debuff, and you can move freely. I went into my mini burn here because with Presence of Mind, I can get the first 2 Arcane Blasts off before the winds pushes me. Use Presence of Mind on the last 2, and then Alter Time back for the barrage. So you can see this is the first time I get targeted by the bombs. I use Greater Invis because that's what I save it for. And I just stay out. My evocation is coming up and I'm just going to use the movement from evocation to get back onto the boss. So this is wins number 2. So I'm going to use Gateway for this one. You can see I have a reminder weak aura. So after this, I'm going to Arcane Surge. You can only Arcane Surge twice in this phase, and you should make sure that you have mirror images at the beginning of Intermission 1, which I'll explain in a sec. So I play the Spark mechanic first, and then I mirror image, and then I go into Arcane Surge. The reason that I mirror image here is because you want it at the start of Intermission 1, and this is the last chance you'll get to use it while still having it up for Intermission 1. And I will explain why you want it in Intermission 1 whenever we get there. So I just go into Arcane Surge as normal. You'll find that this phase and this boss are quite disruptive to both your big burns and your mini burns, but it doesn't really matter because phase 1 damage doesn't matter that much. So you can see here, my reminder text says Alter Time, and it says to use early. So I press Alter Time basically as soon as the cast starts and whenever I'm in position. You want to use it early because it's very tight in between this wins and the wins after, and for the same reason you're going to want to use shifting power in between these wins as well. It might come up a little bit before them, but just make sure you use it after that wins, which is number 3. I have no external, so I make sure that I have my DR up from barrier. So here I spawn a spark out. This is going to happen based on the timings. As a mage, you're fine. You can solo the sparks with your Blast Wave, Spell Steal, Kick. You can see I placed the Ring of Frost close to the raid because I want to make sure that the AoE CC is still hitting as many sparks as possible. I'm not sure if I actually help people with this, but I think it's good habit that even if you're out, that the Ring of Frost still goes close to the raid. But yeah, like I said, as a mage, you can solo them. It's fine. If this happens to somebody else where they get stuck outside the raid, make sure you encourage them to call it so that as a mage, you can help them. So you can see here, based on this timing, she's casting Hurricane Wing, and my alter time comes up 1 second right before the cast finishes because of me casting it late on the previous set and making sure to use Shifting Power in between those sets. We aim to push as she's casting the 5th set of winds. If you play the 5th set of winds, you can use your Gateway because it'll be back, or you can Ice Block it. Do note that if you play the 5th set of winds, that there will be sparks immediately afterwards. Rather than play those sparks on top of the boss, you should play them in the middle of the room. Okay, so she's now casting the 5th winds, so we want to push her to 65 during this cast. And that is the end of phase 1. In the first intermission, there's a new type of mob depending on which side you're on. This mob is super high priority, so I recommend you colour the nameplate in Plater. The blue side or left side mob is the Frostforged Zealot. It applies a healing absorb to the entire raid on that side that needs to be healed up before it detonates and kills the raid. Use health pots to get through this phase if necessary. You can also immune to remove the debuff, and the second Frostforged ad should be killed before it casts the absorb, as 2-minute DPS cooldowns will come back at that point. The red side or right side mob is the Flamesworn Herald. They cast a shield that must be broken to interrupt a cast that will wipe the raid. Use short duration, high damage burst here, like Grief Torch if you have them. So there are 2 sequences to phase 2. In phase 2, she will cast Breath 8 times, and she will alternate between each platform, the blue and red side, each time she casts it, which means she will cast it on each platform 4 times. However, the first platform that she casts it on is random, which means there are essentially 2 sequences to this phase that you can get based on whether or not you get the first breath. I'm going to be showing the same video as before. This is our kill. We got the second breath, but I will also show a pull that was not a kill where we got the first breath to show you how to play that. So if you did what I said, you'll have Evocation and Mirror Image as this phase is starting. Make sure you use them both. So I precast Evocation and I position myself not to get knocked on top of the ad, but to get knocked outside it. So you can see I'm off to the side compared to the rest of the group, and I blink to avoid fall damage. The reason I stay here is because whenever the first breath comes in, if we get it, I want it to go on the ad. So that's why everyone is standing there. But I am the only person in the raid using cooldowns at this point, so I just want to stand and AFK cast. So because everyone is here, if we get the breath, it'll go on top of the raid, and I'll be fine. I use Radiant Spark on the Ruiner, and I use the rest of my cooldowns on the Zealot. There is really no clean way on this to get all of your full ramp and your full CDs and get full value, because the ads just die too quickly, and I think that is the way to get maximum value. So I focus the Zealot, and I set my focus target to the ad I'm assigned to kick. So if you don't get the first breath, there's not a huge amount to do here. You just use your CDs and blast everything. If you finish early, you need to make sure that you wait for this breath before you go, because you don't want the breath to be on the ad. The Zealot that spawns on this second ad, you want to wait until everybody is on top of the ad and then break the shield. You want to kill this Zealot before it casts the healing debuff. So you can see I focus it and I just burn it without clearing my arcane charges, and I barrage when it's in execute. Here it died super fast. It won't always die that fast. Whenever you're learning this phase for the first time, I recommend that you do use Rune of Power and Radiant Spark here. They will be up if I touch the Magi won't. Rather than do like a super efficient mini burn, just kill that ad to see some progress and then pull your cooldowns off it later. So we are now getting the next breath. It's pretty easy. The Zealot will be dead and you just kick the mobs and pull them out. The second breath sequence is definitely a lot easier. You can see here, we can just go straight into the last ad. It's important that the ranged on this side do not bait on the ad. So all of the range stay out, and whenever you're dodging with this circle, you can see that I dodge along this line that the breath would go on, so that I am not changing where the breath is going to go. Breath spawns above us and we move in. It It's quite close to the ads, but really you don't want it to be touching the ads at all. And then focus the Zealot and the Ruiner and use our assigned kicks. You'll find that you might not be killing things this quickly at the start of progress. We have these ads all dead before the last breath even comes in, but if you have to play this last breath and ads are still alive, make sure that you and your guild have a coordinated way on which direction you will dodge on this last set, because you don't want to be splitting the raid, because that's just inefficient. But we just commit and take the portal even though the boss is breathing. So here I get a chance to conjure Mana Gem before the boss comes back and to get ready for phase 2. Okay, this is the first intermission again, but we are going to get the first breath this time. So I'm going to evocate and mirror image as normal before the phase starts. So how you will usually do this is that you'll have some kicks assigned and you'll have some AoE CCs assigned. You'll want to use the AoE CCs first if you get the second breath, and kicks first if you get the first breath. So you can see here, I go into my CDs and the boss is immediately above us and the ads are still really healthy. So we want to use our kicks here first, and then we want to use our AoE CCs now once the ads are out. The next reason this is hard is you can see on that the timer for the breath on the other side is right here, the top of my screen, and you can see we're baiting soon. So we want to make sure whenever we're hitting the second Zealot that we kill it before it casts the shield, and part of that means getting full uptime on that ad. So we just AFK out here, we wait for the boss to spawn, we all move in, and then we break the shield, and then we focus the Zealot. You see that time it died a lot slower. So this next breath should be pretty easy. You just play it while you're running across. And then you play the fourth breath this time the same way you played the third breath last time. The range stand out and they make sure that the breath goes on them. You can see, make sure you dodge in a line in and out of the circle so that you stay in line with the ranged, so that when the breath comes in, it's on top of the ranged and not the ad. This sequence is slightly harder, but this is a high pull boss and you'll need to learn how to do both if you want to make progress on this boss. And then we just take the gateway when everything's dead and get ready for phase 2. There are 3 main differences in phase 2. So the first is that the wave mechanic now causes you to pulse AoE, so be spread when you're moving through the wave and use mobility spells to get through it ASAP. The second is that during the shields, a cast called Inversion causes your mark to switch between blue and red with a small grace window, so you need to move immediately to the other camp if you get targeted by this. And the third change is that the charge is now root, so you'll need to use freedoms and mobility spells to break the root, but also make sure that you're running away without the charge as well. Phase 2. If you're here before the boss, you want to conjure a Mana Gem. Get a spread position and stay there. There's 3 mechanics in this phase that require you to spread: the wave, the sparks, and the shield. How I play my cooldowns around the shield is I use evocation around 10 seconds before the shield, and I cast Radiant Spark as the shield cast starts. I don't use Touch of the Magi in between shields because it won't be up in time, unless you're getting Paladin and Blessing of Summer. I use Presence of Mind for the second and third blasts in the Radiant Spark because it gives me time to move to my stack position before I cast Arcane Surge. If you get the inversion mechanic where your mark switches, you need to move to the other camp immediately. Don't finish your cast, just instantly shimmer. So the Stormwave mechanic is pretty easy as a mage. You can just stand back-ish and shimmer over every wave. You can see here I use Radiant Spark and Rune of Power without Touch of the Magi. And after this wave, I start to shuffle backwards. This is so that if I get targeted by the charges, like you can see here, I can just shimmer to the edge. These leave a pretty nasty dot, so make sure you use Greater Invis or Barrier and get back into position for Sparks. After these sparks, the next mechanic is the wave, so I start shuffling out while casting Spell Steal. And after this wave, 10 seconds until the next shield, so I evocate. Here, I cast Radiant Spark too early. Just cast it with the shield cast like I recommended. I mess up and it causes me to miss my combo, so don't do that. Again, if you get inversion, just instantly shimmer to the other camp. You can shimmer while casting, and the timer on it is quite tight. If you greed finishing a cast, you might kill somebody. If you can get Paladin Blessing of Summer here, it's nice. It gives you a clean go on the last shield, and it also lets you use Touch of the Magi in between shield 2 and 3. I get Blessing here, but I'm stupid and I forget and don't use Touch of the Magi. So Sparks 2 and 3 are tough. The second Spark Wave goes Sparks into Wave, as you can see here, so move out and spam Spellsteal, and the third goes Spark into Shield. So again, you can see the charges. I don't get targeted by these charges. If you don't get targeted by charges, you need to make an effort to get in front of the boss. These charges were easy, but sometimes you'll be close to someone who gets targeted and you need to move more than they do. It's just a random wave again. And then the last overlap in this phase is the Sparks into Shield. I evocate before this overlap, and then I cast my Ring of Frost on the largest group of people in the back. If you have Blood Elf or Tauren racials, you want to use them here too. And then it's Radiant Spark during the shield cast, and bang. You can see here, we're a pretty small group outside on the left, and we're low targets for healing. So one thing we have to do in this is start to shuffle closer to the group. You can see we drop quite low. But just keep that in mind, that if there's only 2 or 3 of you off to the side, you might be low prio for AoE heals, so you need to be closer to the boss. In the second intermission, there's a new ad that teleports between his own 2 locations. He doesn't swap with the heroic ads, and he doesn't need to be tanked. But other than that, he works exactly the same as the current ads, which might not seem like a lot, but this phase will make a lot more sense when you actually see it. Okay, Intermission 2 is quite easy, but it's not simple. So if you prepare ahead of time, you can expect this phase to go smoothly, but it's hard to go in blind. I start off by hitting the Mythic ad on the left with the rest of the ranged, while the melee hit the ad on my right. The first mechanic I need to deal with is just to dodge the orbs while doing my mini burn. And the first major mechanic is the first breath, which should be baited by the melee on the first ad. After the breath ends, the ads will teleport, which will spawn the small ads that will run towards the ad that teleported. I just hit the new big ad that appears while letting the good AoE classes deal with the small ads. This is the only set of small ads we kill, and we CC the rest. After these small ads die, you want to bait breath 2 on the gateway, so you can see melee come back to us. Once the breath starts, take the gateway. You want to leave 3 to 4 people behind to kill the first ad that's going to teleport back. We left both tanks, 1 healer, and 1 DPS DK. So now the ads should be back to their starting positions. The one melee we're hitting should be much lower. You want to kill both these ads before the next teleport. I do not use cooldowns here. I want them back for the start of phase 3, and DPS in this phase was easy. We CC the ads from here on out, and you can see I'm positioned so that I can easily back up a CC if it gets broken. After that ad dies, it's a good idea to stack up and bait the breath, because you don't want anybody to have to run through a bad breath. After that teleport into breath, you just kill the last ad. You can see I back up CC here, and then I get in position for phase 3. As for phase 3 changes, there's the 2 mechanics that existed in phase 2 that have the same changes, but in addition, there is a new mythic mechanic in this phase. You can see these tornadoes that spawn around the edge of the room, and they slowly move towards the boss. If any of them reach the boss gets healed for 5% of its health. So make sure that you soak these before they reach the boss and give priority to tanky specs, and that does include tanks. Okay, phase 3. So conjure mana gem while the boss is immune, and the boss stays immune for a little bit longer than you think, so don't cast evocate until you're already in the air. So as unintuitive as it might sound, you want to actively avoid soaking early in the phase and let the tanks and tanky DPS such as Death Knights or Warlocks take all the tornadoes. There are 2 reasons for this. You do not want squishy specs taking a lot more damage than is necessary, and also the more people you have looking for tornadoes to soak, the less stacked you are for healing. Every magnetic charge is followed by either a wave or charges. If it's followed by charges, you want to place the magnetic charge on the gateway. And if it's followed by a wave, you want to place the magnetic charge onto the boss. So you can see here, the first charge goes on the gateway. If you don't get targeted by the charges, you take the gateway and get out, as I do here. And if you do get targeted by the charges, you just go as far as possible. Here, you still want to be soaking only if it is absolutely necessary. I brain fart and forget to do my mini burn, but you should obviously do it. Still, give preference here to tanky classes for soaking. So I save my greater invis in case I get targeted by the magnetic charge, which I do. Second charge goes under the boss. After the charge goes off, wait a second to get healed. Press alter time, and then use the alter time to dodge the wave. So this next magnetic charge is followed by charges, so you want to put it on the gateway, but the gateway is on cooldown. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that immunity classes are the people closest to the people with the bombs so that they get cleaved and take the second set of bombs. They can do this by standing as close as possible, and everyone else just gets as far as they can. We used rogues, so you can see what happens is we get sucked, everyone gets out, the cleaves happen, and they both go on rogues. Both those rogues cloak, and the last one just spreads to our hunter who turtles. So the fourth charge, again, it's followed by a wave, so you want it to go under the boss. Similar to the last one, once the suck goes off, wait a second to get healed, press alter time, and then use that alter time to dodge the wave. And this is, you're getting late enough into the fight here that you just want everybody to be soaking. You don't want to wipe the boss healing. So at this point, the next mechanic you get is another wave. Just live this however you can. You can block it, you can shimmer. And straight after, you're getting charges. And you want these charges to go on the gateway. So you go to the gateway. If it's off cooldown, you take it, or you shimmer, just get out however you can. And the only thing you need to do here is make sure that these charges do not cleave the raid. If that means going out into the shit and dying, you just do it. If you live these charges without hitting the raid, even if the people who get the charges die, it's fine. Boss is dead. Okay. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you have any feedback for me, it's my first time doing guides like this, so let me know. Also, give me feedback on what type of content you like seeing out of me. I think, unfortunately, I am reaching my absolute limit on what I can do without doing this full time between Mage Hub and YouTube and Twitch and all the different guides. So it would be nice to kind of get a priority for what kind of content people like so that I can drop the other stuff and focus mainly on that. But yeah, if you got this far, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.